started.
Good afternoon and welcome to our CURE seminar today. Thank you for coming. There's quite a few folks who will be joining us online, and we have some people attending in person. So thank you for showing up. Today's seminar features Mustafa Saqib, our visiting research scholar who arrived from Kabul, Afghanistan just a few weeks ago. Thanks to Rutgers-Camden's Chancellor Tillis and the Rutgers-Camden administration, as well as Rick Garfunkel and his team from Rutgers Global, Emily Eckhart and the team from the Institute of International Education Scholar Rescue Fund, the Department of Public Policy Administration at Rutgers-Camden, and of course the tireless support of John Van Til, Desi Van Til, and numerous other people for making Mustafa's visiting research scholarship possible and seeing the opportunity for Rutgers-Camden. Thank you also to Brianna and the Camden Events Office, Kate and Julie in the Dean's Office, our Administrative Assistant Sheila Diggs, and our Graduate Assistant Joby Romero-Sarubi and Sarah DeGeorges for your help with the event preparations. If anybody online has questions or comments, please post them in the Q&A box, and we will be addressing them during the Q&A portion of the event. Mustafa will give his presentation remotely and join us for the Q&A portion in person. I'm now going to introduce the person who will introduce our speaker, and that is John Van Til, who came to Rutgers-Camden in 1974 to chair the Department of Urban Studies and retired 36 years later and now holds the rank of Professor Emeritus. He has co-authored or co-edited over a dozen books on civil society and voluntary participation. His recent writing on social movements in Hungary is recorded in 3 co-edited books. John divides his time between homes in Louisville, Colorado, and Budapest. He shares a home in the Buda Hills with his wife, Agnes Kober Van Til, the Hungarian human rights lawyer and sociologist. John served as director of the Pennsylvania Law and Justice Institute before coming to Rutgers. He was twice elected president of the Association of Voluntary Action Scholars and is the recipient of its Career Award. He served 5 Fulbright terms as scholar or specialist in the UK, Northern Ireland, Hungary, and Turkey. He completed the last of these terms at Marmara University in Istanbul, Turkey in April 2019. John, welcome to the session.
Thank you very much, Natasha. What a delight to be back in urban studies, public policy at Rutgers-Camden. It is a particular delight to be at a meeting that you chair, since you are a graduate of that distinguished program. And I remember well your time not too many years ago in the department. And now you're the program director in urban studies, and it's a great pleasure to accept your invitation to present the introduction of Mustafa Saqib. You mentioned the stay in Turkey, and that's where we should start. I was there 3 years ago, and my assignment as a Fulbright specialist at Marmara University was to work with the faculty and the student body to help them think through some of the issues they were dealing with too many students, not enough time, uh, a lot of noise coming in from the outside society. And one of the first meetings that I attended was called by the distinguished political scientist, Omer Yenkaya, who is with us today, I am glad to note, as is the distinguished, equally distinguished and chair in political science, Erhan Dogan at Marmara. But Omer took me into a room to introduce me to doctoral students. And he had cued me ahead of time that one of these students he thought I would particularly want to spend some time with. There was a doctoral student, can you imagine, in Turkey, who was a human rights activist and lawyer in Afghanistan, who had studied at the University of Washington, who was deeply interested in urban affairs and community development. And of course, this was Mustafa Saqib, and it was, if Mustafa stands up, as you'll see when he comes over to the meeting, and incidentally, there are now 44 people from all around the world who are in the electronic audience to this session. But Mustafa and I chatted after the meeting, and we decided we had a lot to talk about. And during the 6 weeks of my stay at Marmara, I think we got together 2 or 3 times a week, often for conversations in the office space I was given, once on a very memorable climb on the other side of the Bosporus, up the steep hill on that other side with a dear friend of ours, Ilknur, who I think is with us today as well. So these conversations went on. They had to do with sociology, they had to do with urban studies, they had to do with the problems of living in a society in which democracy was very precarious. They had to do with community development, and they were all deep and pleasant and wonderful. And I can remember right when it was time to leave. It was not easy to leave Istanbul. It was not easy to leave the wonderful colleagues and students and food and society and the view of the Bosporus. It's an incredible part of the world. But we got together for a dinner over on the European side, Omer and Mustafa and myself. And on the way back, Mustafa and I took a ferry across to the Asian side. Marmara is on the Asian side, so we were living on the Asian side. And as we headed across this last crossing for me of the Bosporus, Mustafa and I talked about how we would pursue our mutual interests, how our careers might continue to overlap in this wonderful way in which they had done for the last 6 weeks. And we talked about the possibility that I might visit electronically at the University of Herat, where he was returning to teach. I should say we also talked about his happiness in going back to Afghanistan, where he could be reunited with his wife, Sana, who I've now gotten to know electronically. And you all have the opportunity of meeting with her and getting to know her, because she will be in the Philadelphia area with Mustafa for at least the duration of this present appointment. Well, who was to know, after a couple of years of continuing with the intermittent emails that faculty members and their mentees tend to send to each other. How are you doing? What's going on? How's the dissertation coming along? The summer of last year came and the clouds began to darken over Afghanistan. They not only darkened quickly, the whole sky began to fall in. And there's a long story. It took a whole village to bring our guest speaker to Rutgers Camden at this time. I don't know everyone who was in that village, but a number of them are in the list of attendees at this point, and several of them, particularly Rick Garfunkel and his incredible assistants at Rutgers Global, and Natasha and Lori, and electronically, I must say, three very, very special people. Emily, who through her organization, the International Institute of Education, the Scholar Rescue Fund, put together a tremendous amounts of support. And Emily, I believe, is with us this afternoon. Sana, who it has been such a delight to get to know once we were able to establish regular electronic connection. And finally, Desi Van Til. I can't tell you what she did, but she did the name Van Til proud. Whenever anybody says, you know, oh, you're John Van Til, you must be Desi Van Til's uncle. And let me say, I am that. Desi is with us today. It took a village. The village is assembling here. If we need a mayor, I think I'll vote for Desi. If we need a place to have the capital of our village, I think I'll suggest Rutgers University, and particularly Rutgers University at Camden. It is a matter of tremendous achievement that this formerly small urban campus has now assumed its position as a major player on the global scene. There are folks who are with us today from Israel, from Hungary, from Turkey, from Great Britain, from half a dozen at least major universities in the US, Penn, Kane, University of Colorado, Case Western Reserve. There are all sorts of people who are clamoring to listen and watch the recording that's being made of this session. So, Mustafa Saqib, welcome to Rutgers Camden, a global capital for citizen participation in urban affairs. We all look forward to hearing what you have to say today. And great to see you again, my dear friend and mentee.
Thank you, Professor John, for the kind introduction. And thank you, Professors Garfunkel, McKnight, and Fletcher for having me here today. Thanks to Mr. Chancellor for this privilege. Dear friends and colleagues from Rutgers Global, Rutgers Camden, IIE SRF, my friend Desi Van Til, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to thank you for the gracious invitation to share today here our eventful story with you. I would like to begin by expressing gratitude to our generous and supporting friends and colleagues across the world for standing for us, providing the steadfast support, care, and love during the last 7 months. It is an honor to be here with you and with our dear listeners tuning in over Zoom to share one couple's experience of escape from a fallen Afghanistan, as well as offer some context for the current state of my native country. Let me share the screen of my presentation here. Okay. I am a faculty member at Herat University, Faculty of Law, having obtained a master's degree at the University of Washington School of Law, and I am a current PhD candidate at Marmara University Department of Local Governments and Decentralization in Turkey. For more than 10 years, I devoted much of my professional life in Afghanistan to teaching, training, researching, and advocating on gender discrimination and equality, rule of law, democratic elections, and human rights. Themes that are all in opposition to the socio-political philosophy of the regime now in power. The Taliban has returned to reign with neither a clean slate nor clean hands. There are many incentives for reprisals against secular, Western-educated, and American-affiliated intellectuals like me, given our public profile and past or present association with the US or international NGOs. Individuals with such background become a particular attractive target for the Taliban and other rogue insurgents who are bent on revenge and a mission to eradicate so-called Western and secular influence, especially now that they project themselves as the winner of the war. The best example I can give for this disheartening phenomenon is what happened to my brilliant wife, Sana, who is sitting right over here. Sana is a Fulbright scholar, a lawyer educated at Emory University, a human rights and women's rights activist who worked with national and international NGOs in Herat and Kabul. She worked to promote Afghan women's economic rights and legal rights in judicial system and juvenile justice adaptation in Afghanistan. In her last position, she worked as a senior analyst with the National Security Council at the Presidential Palace in Afghanistan. This means that after the fall to the Taliban, Sana was instantly in danger in Kabul due to her education in the US and significant work experience for the Afghan government. But for most of her life, it wasn't like this. Sana and the majority of her peers were able to go to a real school, obtain higher education, and have the right to work, which was a huge achievement for Afghanistan and the international community. Sana and her generation have been the frontline fighters against patriarchy in Afghanistan, a tough battle. She is from a generation that worked hard to acknowledge the significance of women's education and their empowerment in society. She and her generation proved that women could be the top of their field in anything they want. Afghan women just need an opportunity to shine and be productive as any Afghan man in the country. But now we have all taken a step back. Here is what happened to us. The final attacks against major cities in Afghanistan took place during the first 2 weeks of August 2021. We lost control of Herat, Kandahar, and Kabul. I was taking care of my parents in Herat city who were both quite ill with COVID. Sana was reporting to her office daily in Kabul, even on that horrible day when the Republic of Afghanistan collapsed. The sudden and immediate demise of Kabul city and 20 years of achievement left many astonished and distressed. Words fail to describe how Afghan people felt, and I will not be able to display those heart-wrenching moments for Afghans easily. We lost the ground under our feet and felt short of breath when we found that the Taliban entered the capital with gunfires. People were shocked. Kabul city became a ghost city in just a few hours, and residents were hiding in their homes, looking at the streets from their roofs and windows. Soon people understood that it is not only their country and their dreams that were lost. There was suddenly a looming danger of thousands of Afghan citizens. During the last 20 years, the Taliban displayed their hatred to whoever stood with the government or helped the US and international allies, or lived a different lifestyle or taught values contrary to their barbarism. And now that barbaric group who had been fighting in the caves entered the capital. In this panicked and terrifying moment, many Afghans grabbed their backpacks and family members made it to the airport to find any possible flight to get out of the country to save their lives. Many also tried and failed. At that time, I was in Herat city with my siblings, moving back and forth from hospital to my mother to our family home, caring for my father. We had just lost our grandfather, a beloved hero of our family, due to COVID, and we could not attend the funeral due to uncertain situation in the city. We had to decide when and how to tell my hospitalized mother that she had lost her father and her country over the course of a couple days. At that time, I started receiving emails and text messages from national and international friends who heard about Herat and Kabul cities. Professor John Van Til, my mentor at Marmara University in 2019, was kind enough to reach out to me. Many friends and colleagues advised me to leave Herat and go to Kabul so I could look for a way out of the country. People in my home city of Herat knew me and my background as a democracy scholar, which put me at high risk. Meanwhile, domestic flights had ceased and I could not return to Kabul by a regular commercial flight. I decided to leave Herat as soon as possible by any way I could. Sana was all alone in Kabul. My only option was to take a local bus from Herat to Kabul, requiring the crossing of several Taliban checkpoints and would take an 18 hours route, 663 miles. I changed my outfit to look more like local people, put my more Western clothing away, hid my cell phone in a small old suitcase, and started my journey to Kabul at 6 p.m. We crossed several stressful Taliban checkpoints, and I took 24 hours straight for the bus to reach Kabul city, driving on roads and were freshly bombed in the battles the days before, and taking detours around destroyed bridges. Finally, I made it to our apartment in Kabul. I met my wife again after so many surreal weeks, and we were able to hug each other once again, grieving together what we lost. Arriving in Kabul at last, and Sana and I were ready to board any evacuation flight for US allies and other Afghans at risk. Through Sana's affiliation with Fulbright and through my work for a legal agency partnered with the US State Department, our names had made it into some list of Afghans who might get evacuated to a lily-pad country such as UAE or Qatar. We were supposed to keep our backpacks by the door, waiting for a last-second call to tell us if there was a flight to safety. We heard stories of other friends getting these calls but then having their flights canceled. We also had friends and family members who had made it to camps in Doha and Abu Dhabi. It is very hard to explain how we spent those agonizing days waiting to get out of a city where we feared for our lives. We worried if we heard a car speeding off close to our apartment or when we heard too many footsteps on the stairs. We destroyed any document and papers that could reveal our identity to put us at risk if there were a home search. Very soon, we heard about home inspections and patrols checking phones and laptops for any suspicious conversation or document that connected a person to the US or previous Afghan government. We lived several weeks hiding with this distress and fearing for our lives. The only thing incriminating us being our education and work background. Our parents recommended we find a secure place out of town and to spread rumors that we are already out of the country to mitigate the risk of being targeted. It will not be hard for you to imagine us having sleepless cold winter nights with only sporadic electricity, having unreliable internet connectivity, just waiting for a call to fly to some unknown destination. Professor John Van Til continued to seek help for me and Sana, and sent several distress emails to friends, family, and colleagues. At the end of September, there was a turning point. Daisy Van Til, Professor Van Til's niece, who is a screenwriter who lives in Portland, Maine, and had no previous experience in international evacuation work, got involved in our story. She started her rescue mission with all her power when she heard about us. Very soon we understood that Sana and I were not alone anymore. Daisy became a core member of our team. She knew everything about our daily efforts in our journey and started sending emails and making phone calls to every connection she had to start our rescue mission. Since September 2021, we have not spent a single moment or evening without texting a link with Daisy and hearing about her daily progress trying to help us to safety. We learned details about possible evacuation flights. We gave her updates on security issues in Kabul, and we also talked about Premier League soccer and our travels and our families. We became friends. Very early in the process with Daisy, she introduced us to an Afghan volunteer group called Team 13 and Kuri Student. One of those nights, I received a call on my WhatsApp. Kuri sounded confident, determined, and hopeful. That night, we had another reason for being sleepless. This time, it was a hope to hear from Team 13 again. Daisy made sure we submitted our information for several evacuation manifests, and each manifest was another candle of hope for us. As time went on, our hopes of evacuation flights dwindled. The lily pad countries were filling up. Daisy and Sana and I needed to think of plan B, C, and so forth. Three of us knocked on hundreds of doors seeking help for several months, and most doors glued shut due to bureaucracy. Despite Marmara scholarship status and courageous support of my advisors, Professor Omar Ganchkaya and Professor Erhan Duan, my student visa to Turkey wasn't renewed by the Turkish embassy in Kabul, so I couldn't even return to the safety of my PhD program, though we tried that avenue for a solid month. Daisy worked tirelessly and around the clock, writing hundreds of, if not thousands of emails and making calls to several airlifting organizers, fundraising for flights, speaking with high-ranking employees of U.S. government, contacting former ambassadors, journalists, Marines, pro bono immigration attorneys, and powerful women writer friends who opened their networks for us. Daisy made every impossible thing possible and tried to open all the closed doors for us. That's why we call her our super magic. She shared her very own credit card information and suggested several times her financial help in Kabul. Daisy was not alone. She was helping us with her brave army of many kind, generous, and thoughtful friends who asked about us, donated money to evacuation organization, gave her the support while she turned to our mission as a full-time job. It felt very reassuring when Professor John Van Til and Daisy mentioned in their emails that many friends were thinking and caring of us. It was invaluable emotional support for us. We know that we had not been forgotten even in hidden place, and that we had faithful friends who were on this frightful journey alongside us. During this time, John Van Til discussed our situation with Rutgers colleagues. When I was thinking of only saving our lives, Professor Van Til and Rutgers were thinking of saving our lives and my PhD program both. Sana and I had a very friendly Zoom call with Professor Eric Garfunkel and his colleagues in which Rutgers Global displayed their full support, care, love, and hope. Professor Garfunkel proposed a life-changing, dream-saving opportunity at a prestigious institution so I could continue my research and academic journey, while Sana and I could find a secure place to stay, and Sana could hopefully continue her studies as well. Yes, Professor Van Til and Rutgers Global opened a door of hope. In just a few weeks of communication with urban studies, it was determined that if the paperwork could be handled quickly, there was a chance for a J1 visa invitation, a non-immigration visa offered to visiting scholars. Of course, there was no longer any embassy in Kabul, so easier said than done, but our hearts were beating stronger and more hopeful. In the meantime, I was honored to receive a fellowship grant from IIE SRF International Institute of Education Scholars Rescue Fund, a supportive team with extensive experience of hosting international exchange scholars in the US. Thanks to Professor Stephen Zandek, my master's thesis advisor at the University of Washington School of Law, willing to support me endlessly with his generous letters on behalf of me. I have received endless support and advice from Emily Eckart, my kind focal point with IIE, who was ready to help us once we made it to a US embassy. Now, the issue was how to make it a US embassy and which one. Daisy and I already started to look for visas to any other country as a B plan. We sent countless emails, phone calls with friends in Afghanistan, the USA, UAE, Turkey, Qatar, India, and etc. To which country could we safely and legally travel? In which country could we get an embassy appointment? Tourist visas to these countries had stopped being available for Afghans. We were boxed in. We did not hear many promising responses, and at that time, only Pakistani electronic visa was available for Afghans, which was another potentially risky destination for Afghans, and a place that was already becoming crowded with people like us seeking refuge. It was a trade-off, waiting for an evacuation flight in Kabul under distressed conditions or taking the risk and going to Islamabad US Embassy. An American immigration attorney, along with Daisy's helpful contact within the US Foreign Relations Committee, recommended we try for Islamabad. We chose to take the risk and try to schedule an interview appointment at the US Embassy in Islamabad, Pakistan. We filled all the forms and we were just a click away from scheduling an interview in the embassy when the system did not allow us to pay online with Daisy's credit card. It kept telling me cash only to be paid at a bank in Pakistan. Now, I was in Kabul. That was the problem. I didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense for us. This is the sort of senseless maze that we confronted every day. Daisy stayed up late and did a live chat with the Islamabad embassy help desk to determine that no, it wasn't an error. We had to pay in Pakistan and in Pakistani rupees to a bank located in Pakistan. We scrambled, but thanks to a friend of mine, we were able to make the payment in cash in a bank located in Pakistan. Now, we just needed to be in Pakistan in person, which was another battle to win. Appointment now booked for June of 2022. We considered flying to Islamabad to save us the physical difficulty of overland crossing, but we started hearing rumors of detainment at both airport and Taliban decrees to stop professionals from leaving the country. So we choose to make the harder journey. On December 15th, 1 a.m., Sana Muzammel, my brother-in-law, and I drove 4 hours overnight to Turkmen, the ground border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Our team of 3 started an arduous journey from Kabul on a freezing winter night with a snowstorm, expecting every calamity to happen on the way. We crossed several checkpoints again, wearing our local clothing, and made it to the border. We were supposed to line up and wait in the early hours of the morning. It took us 5 hours to cross 3 miles of the border, this last part on foot. It was crowded and chaotic. We carried 2 suitcases and 2 backpacks, and this was all that we were taking with us from our old lives. The border guard extorted us for money, but Sana and I got the entry stamp into our passports, and we entered Pakistan, where we took a taxi to our hotel room in Islamabad. There we were, on the other side of the border, where everything looked normal and calm on a beautiful sunny day. Mixed feelings, happy for being safe at this side of the border, but shattered for leaving our country in a dark night without seeing those high snowy mountains. Not sure if we could see those beautiful mountains and trees again. The night ended When we found our way out of the border, had a legal entry stamp on our passport, and knew that there is no risk of deportation anymore. Next, we had to expedite our visa interview so we could have a chance of making it at Rutgers for the spring semester. With the help from our immigration attorney, we found that the right online loopholes and moved our interview from June to January, which was a relief since our Pakistani visa was only for 2 months long. Daisy asked many high-ranking people to send letters of support on our behalf to Islamabad Embassy. We received wise counsels from IIE and Rutgers Camden colleagues on how to prepare for the non-immigration visas interview. We had heard from several channels that Afghans were getting denied receive non-immigration visas from Islamabad, so kept our expectations in check. Thanks to Daisy and her friend Ula, a former State Department officer, and Ayelet, a former public defender, we three conducted several tutorial and mock interview sessions over Zoom, and I had the chance to answer tough questions to prove that my mission story is real. On January 5th, we had an appointment in the embassy and surprisingly received an affirmative answer right then and there from a very kind officer. It is hard to describe those breathtaking moments when we were thinking of having a real visa on our passports, and the whole world could open up for us. I called Daisy in the middle of her night, and we talked for an hour, so overjoyed. We laughed. We couldn't believe that we weren't all dreaming. Just 2 days after the interview, we had our passports and our visas, and after Daisy was able to convince her credit card company that the plane tickets we were trying to buy out of Islamabad was an outright purchase, we had tickets to book to Boston. Only one more interview, an extra 30 minutes grilling by Homeland Security after our 11-hour flight. But thank God, we made it to a safe place and collapsed at an airport hotel, sleeping like we had never slept before. I thought of my future office at Rutgers, and we were one step closer. At last, we meet our third member of our team, who lived the venture with us but lived on the other side of the world. Daisy June met us at the bus station in Portland, Maine. It feels like we knew each other for so long, and we were reunited a dearest family member after several surreal months, all together able to smile for a photo. The mission was accomplished. Now we are with our super magic. The rest of the journey seemed far easier from that part. Words fail to describe the love and generosity we received from Daisy, her sweet family, and her friends. Daisy's friends Julie and Andrew generously loaned us their beautiful cozy beach home where we decompressed and got over jet lag. Friends and family shared with us their food, clothes, and love after our journey. Daisy and Sana and I made the Portland rounds together to get us COVID boosters, cell phones, bank accounts, winter boots. We celebrated our birthday with Daisy and her family, not in a camp, not uh, hiding, but at my new family's table with homemade birthday cake. Soon the breathtaking day arrived, and I found Rutgers Camden beautiful campus. It was real. I was not looking at images on Google Maps anymore. I had a desk, chair, and laptop to continue writing, discussing the values I believe in, I studied, I dream of, and I advocated for. We are safe, but what about our family back home, my countrymen and women? It has been 6 months since the Taliban entered Kabul and took control of all Afghanistan. 6 months and no country has yet recognized its government. The future appears grim. All they have accomplished in these 6 months of governance is to remove women from public sphere of life and create a male-dominant society. Living under the Taliban regime is a return to dark ages for women. Civilian administration buildings are full of armed men instead of specialized and educated people. The media that had developed in the last 20 years is all but gone, with more than 70% of outlets nationwide closed, according to the National Union of Afghan Journalists. Food prices in Afghanistan have risen sharply. The banking sector is on the verge of collapse, and donor countries have frozen nearly $9 billion in Afghan funds and assets. The International Rescue Committee said in a statement issued that approximately 23 million people in Afghanistan are facing severe food shortages or insecurity. There is no policy to reduce poverty in Afghanistan, only policies to enforce senseless restrictions on women. There is no rule of law now. The Taliban abolished the constitution, which provided the legal basis for the Afghans and their government structure. People are faced with rulers who believe they have captured power by force. It's not important for them if they receive people's support or not. In such a situation, freedom of speech is meaningless. Several university professors have been arrested and brutally tortured because of criticizing the Taliban regime and unveiling the Taliban's inability to govern the country. University professors currently in Afghanistan have been facing severe economic difficulties as the Taliban are unable to pay their salaries. Taliban and other extremist groups have always seen universities as an ideological threat, since universities play a crucial role in forming the future of society. They have decided, therefore, to appoint uneducated authorities from their own group as deans, chancellors, head of department, and etc. These newly appointed authorities have been given unlimited power to oversee the implementation of newly applied rules and restrictions by their government, and they monitor professors' curriculum and teaching plans. They have recently started a process to award honors degrees such as master's and PhD to their members who have almost 0% of academic qualifications and who have spent much of their lives in the mountains. They have announced their intent to reopen universities, but there will be gender segregation. Curriculum will be soon changed, and they want to ensure that the new generation hears nothing about democracy, rule of law, human rights, civil society, and freedoms. They announced new restrictions on Afghans trying to leave the country, women traveling alone, and several other basic rights. Sadly, authentic Afghan scholars lack academic freedom, safety, and financial support to continue their academic activity in the universities and teach or lectures the best basic values. This is where the international academic institutions need to step up and help Afghan scholars to save their lives, voices, and ideas threatened back home, and help them to have a peace of mind while conducting their research and while delivering lectures in a class. And for promoting this goal, we need more fellowship opportunities for Afghan scholars at international institutions and international advocacy for supporting integrity of educational institutions inside Afghanistan. We must not grow accustomed to the current unjust, inhuman, and illogical restrictions on human lives in Afghanistan. And research is the very first step of raising our voice at this stage. It took Afghanistan 20 years of continuous and constant advocacy and capacity building programs promoting national and international values to pave the way for our generation to have fundamental lives and live a normal life. However, it took only 2 months for us to lose our values and identity. 30 to 40 years ago, our parents had to flee the country because of the Russian invasion and the civil war. Though they made it back home to take part in the glory of the country and raise their children in their own homeland. Now our parents ask our generation to find a secure place far away from our home to stay safe. As you know, we carry deeply wounded hearts due to losing our country, our future, our dreams, and leaving our families back home. But the care, love, support, and generosity we received from numerous individuals, friends, colleagues, and institutions has become the best medicine we could have prayed for. We found our supportive team and circle of our friends so strong and determined that felt a whole nation standing for us and our lives. How we can stand for the life of everyone else who wasn't as lucky as we were. Thank you very much for listening.
Perth, just across the street. I'll open the door for you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do the Q&A when you're here.
Yeah, I will see everybody from there.
Come on over. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and having us today. It made us both very happy that you come in person and listen our story and listen what we've been through for several months. Thank you very much for coming and having us. Thank you.
Of course. This is Sana, Mustafa's wife, and you saw in the film, in the presentation. And Mustafa is just across the street in his new office at the Department of Public Policy and Administration. So if you are ever around and want to visit him, he's literally there at is it 401 Cooper Street. So and I hope that now that we've met Mustafa and Sana, that you guys will reach out sometimes and offer a helping hand or to connect and you know, have a coffee with.
It will be a pleasure.
And welcome Mustafa and Sana to our Rutgers Camden community. So we're really happy to be hosting them. And now you know a lot more about where they came from and the arduous journey that they've just left, leaving Afghanistan. And
Yes, thank you so much. So, of course, it wasn't easy at all. But when you think about the future, what's waiting for you, especially for Mustafa, that he was able to continue his PhD, because the PhD is not easy, it's not 1 year program. You invest your 4 or 5 years, and then in the middle of like everything, we just noticed that he won't be able to continue and to finish his school, which was painful, not only for us, for his colleagues, for my parents, for his parents. My dad is a faculty member, his dad is a faculty member, so they know how it hurts when you start your PhD and then there is no chance to continue. So thanks to Professor John Van Thiel, he made it like, okay, there is a hope for you to go for Rutgers, and then you'll have a chance to continue your PhD. Thanks for Rutgers. Thanks for all your friends.
sure. I'm just gonna see.
Okay, great. And I was talking to Mr. Carlo that I saw there is a deeds form which we are supposed to have it and submit it to the embassy, say like we are here and we have an invitation from Rutgers. We are applying for a student visa and we had his signature on our deeds form. And I just told him that this is my favorite name. Because that time we were not able to have that piece of paper when we were in Kabul because the sending documents were not available from US to Afghanistan. So we moved to Pakistan and then we received that form. And it was just like, yeah, we received it. And there was his name and his signature. So it's like my favorite name.
It was, we had to move some obstacles and do some things, be creative. But it was really just such an honor to be able to work on this project and finally to get verification that they received the form and that they were able to go to the embassy and come over. It was just a huge relief for us. So we were very proud of that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, here he is, question and answers. Anybody want to go first? Question, comment? A chance to talk to Mustafa now first.
Yes, I'll go first.
Hi, Brian.
Professor Van Til, great to see you. It's Brian Morton. Thanks for the invitation. As I heard your story, Mustafa, thank you for sharing your story. And congratulations on your journey. I kept thinking it's a testament that education ultimately is the pathway from poverty, right? It was a testament to that. But I kept having a sense of foreboding, right? I was first introduced to the concept of civil society, civic democracy by Professor Van Til in the spring of 1990 when I first came on campus. And I learned a lot. And so as I've been monitoring, what's happening across Asia, the potential for Russia to go to Taiwan, right? I mean, not Russia, but China, right? All of these things, I'm looking back here in America in that over the past 2 years, America has lost its status as a democracy, right? It is now an autocracy. And so as you were speaking about some of the restrictions within the government and sort of the dismantling of the governmental protections in your country, I look now that one of the reasons we're an autocracy is that we really don't have congressional oversight, that we purge from within our parties, and that we place fictitious titles. You talked about bestowing of PhDs and doctorates and certifications and credentials, and we do that now here in America. And so my question to both you and Professor Van Til is that as we have seen sort of and I don't mean end result because I do believe in the future, right? That through education, through leaders, through returning, it will change. But as we see what happens when we begin to take the protections out of government, society begins to not be able to participate. We've changed most of our voting laws. And had we not had a massive change in voting laws to allow for vote by mail, we would have potentially had a continuation of the same sort of leadership that led to the denigration of autocracy. So from a learned worldview, as you look here at your new home and you realize this is not a democracy, what would you offer us as insights and as warnings to really inspire a group to say, these are within your powers to begin to turn back what is already advancing against your lifestyle? So thank you.
John, can you hear us? Oh, you have to, mic.
Let me unmute. I can hear you. And Brian, hello. This is
Okay.
delightful to see. You see your former students and what they've turned. I mean, what a great profession this is, Mustafa and Sana. You've chosen the right place, and you're going to have a wonderful life.
Okay, any feedback as to Brian's comments, questioning well, our system of governance in the US, and Mustafa and Sana just landing in what Brian calls an autocracy.
I don't call it politic, you know. I don't
Yeah,
CIA
no, I mean,
classifies it.
right. So
Yeah.
I don't know, do we?
You know, you can think about the images we have of certain other countries. Think about the image that we have of Turkey with the
Right.
authoritarian governor and so the authoritarian president and so forth. A lot of people being thrown into jail, academics being treated very, very harshly when they criticize. But there is another side of these countries where it's possible to build out of them a future that is not, in some respects, that different from what our own country could turn into as it makes some terrible decisions. If you go back to the story that Mustafa has just told us, there were points along the line that I was counseling him and counseling Desi. Don't just look at the United States. The United States and President Biden, you know, turned its back on your country. And how can you really say that, you know, these members of the State Department and the embassy are going to treat you right? Look at other places. And they looked at Turkey very carefully. And, you know, there was a heroic response from Turkey. One of our dear Turkish colleagues is, I think, in the car listening to this, and he just sent his greetings on the chat, Erhan Dogan. One needs to be alert for the preservation of American democracy. And of course, now we're caught up in this military action in Ukraine, which is leading to more devastation than the Afghan situation, if you can imagine that, although hopefully it will be not a permanent event. But there's so much to do, and Rutgers Camden and Rutgers Global, which has just been such a terrific addition to the Rutgers community. There are things for all of us to do. So
Yeah. Well,
I have nothing more to say than that.
yeah, yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Can I add something? I just wanted to say, like, what happened to us, I will not have the audacity to go for the factors and the reasons why this was the result, like, because there are several reasons inside our government, coming from our own society, coming from our neighbors, coming from across the how can I say, across the oceans.
Yeah.
Several or maybe 1,000 reasons, but the only thing is the values that people believe in and the legacy. This is really important, I think. Like politics, the government, they change, regimes change. Like Mustafa said, like 20 years ago, ladies like me, they didn't have the right to go to school. But when Taliban came, we saw mothers, fathers who were just like, who were raising their voice, why you don't let girls to go to schools? It was something really funny for them. What was the reason? That the journey that we had for 20 years. It was very ridiculous and funny for telling people, okay, ladies, sit down home, you cannot go to school. So I think maybe these are the values, and values of a society can change and they will remain.
Yeah, yeah, good. That's a good point. Contextual, right? Yeah, it's a lot better here in terms of women being able to go to school, for example, right? That's like one aspect of.
Yeah, I believe, and we were like involved with American people when I was studying in USA, Mustafa was studying in USA. When I was working with international NGOs in Afghanistan, and we believed in the values that people believe, civil society members believe, we were working with civil society members in Afghanistan. And I think that was the issue that our heart was just like warm and confident that there are people who believe in the same values that we do.
Yeah, very good. Paul?
Yes, well, that was an amazing story, of course. And, but part of the goal today, I think, is to help us get to know you and to think about areas of potential collaboration now that you're here. And I know it's hard to think about research questions when you've just gone through such a difficult adventure. But I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about, both of you, about your areas of interest in terms of research projects and going forward. Maybe talk a little bit about your dissertation and talk more about some of your areas of interest in the legal field. I know I heard Mustafa mentioned juvenile justice issues. So just tell us a little bit about the things that you're interested in, what you'd like to be working on. And in your head, maybe there'd be some potential for collaboration with other people who are here or watching on the Zoom.
Yeah, because I think I thought,
So thank you so much for the question. The major classes that I have when I was studying my bachelor at Herat University and my master's is human rights, international law, and juvenile justice. Of course, I had my work experience in the Herat University Legal Clinic, where we had a newly established unit for juvenile justice, and there are like huge problems. When a country says that we have problem with juvenile justice, we are also having the same claim. We have problem with juvenile justice system and how we have to have some reservations or changes and adaptation legally and in practically as well. But like I have to say, fortunately, last year's or 2 years, we had very good achievements on juvenile justice. We had like a new team, fresh team, youth who were just practicing in this regard. We had educated judges, professional judges and prosecutors, and we had some adaptation in juvenile justice. But it wasn't perfect, of course. I had very good classes when I was at Emory regarding American juvenile justice, and sometimes there were some very close issues that when they were talking about the negative or the challenges of the system, it was similar in Afghanistan. I would love to work on juvenile justice because I had already classes and experience in juvenile justice. Maybe human rights and women's rights is a cliche about Afghanistan, but what can I do? Yeah, it's what can I do? Like, still have room and need and necessity to go for it and work for it. I was really happy for having the opportunity to write several papers on Afghan refugees in Turkey, the humanitarian issues with Afghans living in Turkey, refugees in Turkey, and I drafted a very good article about Afghan women under Taliban regime, and I submitted my draft to a seminar international conference in Turkey. But because I wasn't able to go there physically, they didn't give me the chance to present it electronically and via Zoom. But I think this should be my responsibility for the rest of my life to work for Afghan women. So I think I talked enough about myself.
thank you both for having us today here and attending us and being with us today. I do appreciate it, and thank you for your question. When I returned to Afghanistan in 2014 from the University of Washington School of Law, I decided to work at Herat University in ADR Legal Clinic, Alternative Dispute Resolution Legal Clinic, because I wanted to be, in the meantime, connected with the people and society. And you know, Afghan society is almost a rural society. And I noticed that there is a little bit
gap between the people who are living in the urban area and the people who are living in the rural area. In Afghanistan, like more than 24% only the populations they are living in urban area. The rest they are living in rural area. So I noticed that there should be some efforts to raise the consciousness of the people who are living in rural area. And after that, I interested to work more on local governments in Afghanistan because I noticed that there is still a gap in the last 20 years in Afghanistan, the process of the state building in Afghanistan. There is a gap between the government, state, and people, the majority people. So that's why I became interested to work on local governance, local democracy, and citizen participation, and how we can find a way to convince people, local people, to participate for their own rights, to be their own decision makers at the local level. So this is my main target for my dissertation, for my PhD dissertation, and I'm still working.
Okay.
Thank you. Also, Mustafa will be teaching a course for us in urban studies this coming fall, international or globalization on global cities, right? So we will be promoting the course to our undergrads, of course, who would, I'm sure, love to be in your course. Any other question? Otherwise, just another round of applause. You know, we can end the formal program. If anybody has a question, wants to say hi to Mustafa, please do so. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, John, for. John, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, well done.
Yes. Thank you for coming.